first grade. And the reason why this is so important because so many of us, right, we're striving to go towards a goal. We have something, a vision that we want to achieve in mind. And in today's society, it's easy to get sucked into the trap of that instant gratification, meaning wanting the result without putting in the necessary work. And what I'm going to tell you today is that the work is where all the juice is. But in order to make strides and achieve whatever it is you want and get the fulfillment, all those feelings you want from it, you really do have to go back to the basics. And the reason you want to go back to the basics, one is it builds momentum. Secondly, you build confidence. And thirdly, you get the results. So let's go to a area of your life, right? Think of maybe it's like the vision you have for your health. Why is it important, right? You always start with the end in mind, and then the why is really the juice, what gets you and propels you towards that vision. But then once you have that, now it becomes strategizing. In my course, we go through the belief system as well and the beliefs that you'd have to have in order to create that. But we're just going to go to the strategy. So when you look at the strategy, like I think all of us are very intelligent and we're smart in the sense that we know what we have to do in order to get a result we want. And that knowing of what to do could literally mean talking to someone who can get us better insight and give us better clarity or more clarity on what it is that we want. So you know what it is you want to do, but then why aren't you doing it, right? Some of the basics, and that goes into action. But for this episode, we are literally just going to talk about the basics. So what is it that you want? Why is it that you want it? And what are the steps? What are the steps? If you had a beginner's mindset, where would you start in order to get this? What you do is you write the list down, and then this is where you begin chopping away and making progress towards that goal. You might say, well, I don't have the time to start this. And I know it's easy to get into the trap of believing that you don't have time, but if you're in that space, I want you to stop incanting that, oh, I don't have the time, because you do have the time, right? I am willing to bet, and I say this respectfully, is that you spend a lot of time cycling around thoughts that literally move you nowhere. And I say that because I've often found myself there many times. And it's not a good place to be because you spiral until there's no energy. And then all of a sudden you just kind of fizzle up and you give up saying, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. When the truth is just, you were trying to jump ahead. You were trying to get the result without doing like the very, very basics and allowing yourself to build that momentum. Or you may see, well, I don't know where to start. As I mentioned earlier, I believe that all of us have the answers. We all have a general sense of what we need to do in order to get the result we want for whatever it is. It could be a vision for a category of our life, or it could literally be making an advancement in our career. All of us have the tools inside of us, the know-how inside of us, the wisdom inside of us. But you can, again, fall in the trap of these incanting things that you don't know, but you do know, right? You may not know the exact path, but you have an idea as to how you can get a little bit more clarity, right? Maybe some people you can talk to, and then you could ask your good friend Google, who seems to know everything. All the answers are out there. So I want to share with you a story from this week, and it'll really drive home the message of beginning at the basics. A while back, I had gotten certified in scuba diving, and I got certified without being able to swim. Like, how is that possible? I don't know. Well, during the certification process, they allowed me to get certified without having to actually swim. I was able to use my flippers, which if you've ever used flippers before, especially scuba diving flippers, they're like literally 2 feet long. You don't have to do much work in order to be buoyant with those types of flippers. So I completed the swimming part of the course. And then the other part was the life skills. One of the life skills are where they literally, they take out your respirator underwater. And I actually had to do this again in Thailand, in the ocean, which freaked me out. But literally you had to take the respirator out of your mouth, and then you had to literally take your goggles off, put them back on, clear the mask. So get all the water out of the mask. That means you have to like breathe out of your nose without the respirator, and then grab the respirator, put the respirator back in your mouth, and then give the thumbs up to your trainer, the person who's monitoring you. So I remember being in Thailand, and when I thought about this, I'm like, oh shit! Like I was literally crapping my pants because I had done this in a pool, and I had done my certification dives, but I hadn't done it in the actual ocean, and it had been a couple of years since I had done my certification, which meant I had to do a recert, meaning I had to do all the life skills again in the open water. So I was with my dive master, and we're doing, we're in the water, and he goes, and he's pointing me or she's pointing to me to like to remove my mask, and I did. I was nervous as hell, and I pulled the mask off, and then I put it back on, and for a while I wasn't clearing the mask, right? Because I think my cheeks were probably puffed out, but I knew that there was nowhere else to go. I had to blow out the mask. I had to force that air out of my nose to clear the mask. Otherwise, I probably would have taken in water and I probably would have swallowed a bunch of water and had been rushed up to the surface. So fast forward, I'm in the pool this past week, actually last week, and I was doing my laps and able to do laps. I had gone from not being able to barely swim at all to start to be able to get like, a 50, meaning like one lap there, one lap back, breathing the correct breathing methodology, like by putting your head to the side and doing your strokes. And then I would be winded afterward. This past week, I was at the pool and I was watching this class going on where they were teaching grown-ups and like younger teens how to swim. And I was looking at the life skills they were teaching them. And he was like, all right, well, first go, just hold your breath, go underwater, see how long you go under for, come up, and then do that 5 times. And they would slowly progress the skills, with the next one being, go underwater, exhale through your nose, and just see how long you can do it for. The exercise after that was then them kicking out underwater, breathing out. After 3 seconds, turning over and then floating on your back and kicking, and then for 3 seconds and stop. As it progressed, then it was breathing underwater, breathing it out, adding the stroke in. So there was this progression there. And as I was looking at them go through this progression, I realized that if you were to put me in that same progression, even though I was able to do laps, I'd have to rest, but I was able to go back and forth in the pool doing laps, chances are like I would struggle with that. Actually, to be honest with you, when I was looking at them doing that, just the act of like staying stagnant in the water, going under and breathing out through my nose kind of made me panic. So I went over to talk to the 2 guys who were running the class. I said, "Oh, can you tell me more about this, about the lessons?" He's like, "Well, we start you here, we see what your advancement is, and we just keep compounding, we keep adding these to the skill set until finally we're just working on your stroke." So I was like, all right, well, I took the flyer. I was like, I'm going to really consider joining, because while I'm able to do some laps, I know that the basics are some of the areas where I feel weak. And I know if I were to just to do the basics and get comfortable in the basics, that it would improve my overall swimming. So they left. I go back the following week, yesterday, and I said, let me just work on these basics. I was about to go start just doing laps as I always have, which was easy because when you have momentum in the water is kind of going down. So it's hard for water to go into your nose. You don't really have to practice the right breath work. So I said, let me just go underwater. So I went underwater and tried to breathe out. And the first thing I noticed was that I was gathering water, like air in my cheeks. Like I'd go under, all of a sudden my cheeks would plump up and no air would be coming out of my nose, and I'd be like struggling. I'm like, I can't breathe, and I would pop up to the surface. And I did that several times, and slowly, like sometimes I would get a little bit more success being able to stay 12 seconds, maybe 14 seconds. But then I noticed a pattern. While I was underwater, I noticed that when I was breathing, like if I was breathing through my mouth, right? That is the only way I could puff up my cheeks. But if I lock out that part and only allowed air to go through my nose, then all of a sudden there is no puffing the cheeks, and the air only has one way to go out. So I just practice that. I was like, let me just test this out. And I did that. And all of a sudden, it became very easy. And I was able to slow the cadence of my breath. And all of a sudden, I was staying under longer. And my goal during that exercise was literally just to do it for 20 seconds. I wanted to sit in the water, breathe out for 20 seconds. Mission accomplished. The next one was to practice the kicks they did. So I literally went through all the steps they did. And at first, I did the 3 seconds, then turned on my back, and it felt kind of awkward because I didn't really know if I was supposed to extend my hand out. But I continued to do it otherwise. After doing that, it became very easy to flip over my back and then go back in, flip over my back. And what I realized was that what they were doing were just kind of teaching you the stroke, like how to open up and turn for air. And then lastly, the last thing I did was, I practiced with the board, like breathing out, and then with one of the floating boards, I can't remember the kick boards, like using that to place my hands as I was doing my strokes. And again, slowly improving. I did that 5 times as well. And then finally, after I had finished all those, I was, you know what, I feel good about everything I did. And I really felt the gratification of knowing that not only did I conquer some fears, right? Like the basic stuff I was afraid of just going underwater. But after working on these skills, and I clearly, just in that half an hour I was in the pool, I saw a lot of progress being made. And I gave myself kudos for the courage to keep going because I wanted to get out, to be honest with you. And so when I was in the pool, I was like, you know what, screw this. Let me just do some strokes. Let me just go into the pool to see how it all comes together. So I kicked off, and then I started doing the strokes, and I noticed that my breath all of a sudden was extremely easy and very calm. And I didn't have the muscle endurance yet because I haven't been swimming that long, and I'm just getting back in the pool literally since 5 years. But I noticed the ease that the breath work that was going on. And it made me think about everything you want in life, right? Anything you're striving towards. And I use the example of a vision that you have for your life. And I could use something for like your health. Like I told you, I had mentioned before, like, well, what is the benefit of starting at the basics? So one was you start to build momentum, right? Because as I was just in my story, as I was dunked my head under, I was breathing for 20 seconds. Then I was kicking just kicking before turning for another 20 seconds. I was able to take each new skill and build on it and add it until so that I was experiencing that growth. Secondly is confidence. Like after I discovered that breathing practice, I felt really confident. Like I slowly built up, went from like 6 seconds to maybe 7 seconds to 10 seconds. When I hit that 20, I gave myself a high five and a hug. And then all of a sudden, that confidence allowed me to move forward into the next exercise, and it compounded. And the lastly is the results, right? You see the results, the compounding effect, and that gives you, again, it kind of plays in confidence and momentum, but you get more confidence, you take more action, and you get more results. So the results compound, and eventually you will get to that end, but you just have to keep building and taking a step at a time, not trying to close the gap by jumping across, because a lot of times that crevasse is a little bit too big. So look at the areas of your own life. Where do you need to go back to the basics? I'll give you one more very, very quick example. Let's talk about health, right? Because I think that this is one of the plagues of society today, is that there aren't a lot of people taking care of their health. And I say that because, we've become very sedentary. Sitting, working on the computer, I always have to remind myself to get up, stretch, meditate, move, get outdoors. Because you're sitting at a computer and it's really not good for your hips. Or at least you have to start to make adjustments in your exercise and your routines in order to accommodate for this new lifestyle that you're doing. So let's look at your health, right? You have this vision for your health. You could even, if you want to take a pen and paper out, I encourage you to do so now. Like, what is the vision for your health? Just write down a few words, how you want to feel, how you would see yourself. And then the next is, why is it important? Right? Why do you want to feel this? One of the things for me was because my body is the vessel that is going to take me around the world. Thinking about that means, like, you know what, I really got to take care of this, because, how else am I going to travel the world and see every single country if my body is not in top shape? And then lastly, when we go down to the strategies, all right, well, what are some of the strategies? And now you may be like, oh, well, I got to get a trainer, and you might be thinking of these big things, but the most important thing is just to start building a habit. Like if it's working out 3 days a week, like one of the basics would be like just going for like a 5-minute walk. If you've never worked out before, don't try to go an hour and burn yourself out and be like, you know what? I'm so sore. I never want to do this again. But go to the basics. And maybe the basics is making sure you get 3 liters of water a day, making sure that you just stretch or get some movement, 10,000 steps, right? They make it so easy. You have these smartwatches, which make it easy to monitor and give you a measure as to what you're doing daily. Or, I mean, and these are all, you could literally implement all these because they all will move the needle forward. And then if you can say, if it's just energy, know that energy it's not something you get, it's something you generate. So energy, if you want more energy, then you have to dispense more energy. Get out, move your body. Let your body know that, you know what, this is going to be something that I'm going to be doing on an ongoing basis, and you better adapt. And then you'll slowly will get more energy. Isn't it true that when you feel lethargic, chances are it's probably because you weren't moving very much for a while. And as a result, your body's like, well, you know what? I don't feel like moving now. But when you get up and you actually move, all of a sudden it awakens all these other parts of you. And now, as a result, you get more energy. Your physiology is extremely important. So to sum it all up, what I want you to get from this episode is just to, I've talked about life visioning, like what is the grand vision, how that is a pull forward. We spoke about why and how your why is literally, that's the hook. Your why is like the hook that literally pulls you as opposed to having to be pushed in a direction. And then the strategy, these are just how you're going to get to the results you want. And starting with the simple things, because a lot of time common sense is not common practice. And you have to start at the basics in order to build the momentum, to build the foundation in order to get to wherever it is you want. Right? Because you slowly, as you start doing, you'll start adding more, you'll make adjustments, you start improving. So I encourage you to just kind of work this out through your life. I mean, at the very least, by listening to this, you can just get a feel as to what you are doing, right? And where you are in a category of your life and what kind of actions you've been taking. This is not to be hard on yourself, right? This is for you to say, okay, well, what have I been doing? And how can I get better results? How can I do something different that's going to give me the result I want? Because you're capable. Anyone is capable of doing the work. It's just a matter of doing the work. You're fully capable. I believe in you, and I know that whatever result you want, you can get it. You just have to take the necessary steps in order to get it. That's it. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please leave a comment. And again, remember, you guys, you only get one life. Live it. God bless you, and thank you so much for tuning in.